Hello and welcome. This is the very first It's All Comical vlog. I am Russ, your guy in Guam. And as I say that this is the very first It's All Comical vlog, that's actually kind of a lie. This is the very first of the vlog as I'm sort of establishing, creating what I believe, or it's sort of a next step evolution. I've decided on It's All Comical as kind of being, a title to encompass my kind of personal outreach efforts, broader outreach efforts, but this is really actually week 8. This began as an ongoing documentary of weekly posted, and today, by the way, being June the 18th, 2021. So I began, I guess, what was it, April the 30th? So we're May into June, right. So April the 20th, I began a weight loss effort, and I've described in previous weeks, I think every video that I make, I'm doomed to forget to silence my phone and have someone send me some sort of message, so I get a little alert and a moment where I have to silence my phone. And why not? Let's make that a theme. What the fuck? So yeah, I began April the 30th. Documenting my weight loss, the weight loss effort that began on April the 20th, 2021. I weighed in at that point at 265.2 pounds. And week by week, and part of this ongoing effort will be to continue to document my weight loss. Again, so this is sort of week 8. There are 7 prior videos, but this is the first one now, and as I've been talking about how this thing was probably going to evolve. And I have made a decision, to continue to evolve it, and I'm going to be shortly beginning to get an online presence going, publishing articles probably to medium.com in 2021. That's the place to do it if you're sort of an independent writer looking to find your voice and get yourself out there. But really, encapsulate where I began and where I am today. In April, when I started this, it was sort of in support of an effort to establish myself as a writer in the business space. I had done some studying for copywriting. I am available for that kind of work if you are interested in my voice and would like to hire me, but it's not a focus, and honestly, sort of hand in hand, like why I'm your guy in Guam. I've explained this before, but just real quickly, my wife, we're here in support of my wife's career, and it's taking off quite marvelously. She works in education for the U.S. military as an independent contractor. She's not enlisted. She is an independent contractor, and we're here in Guam currently stationed, and we may end up moving other places. And as we're embracing that adventure, that kind of has a tendency to sort of create a bit of chaos in the lives of everyone who's affected, both back home in the States. We're from Texas, and for us here in our nuclear family, my wife and myself, and this is our now 3-year-old son Stephen. And I've also mentioned before that these 2 babies are my wife's grown children now. They're both in their 20s, and they're living their lives happily and independently back in Texas. And again, we connect with them as much as we possibly can, as we do with all of our extended family. But it's sort of our little trio, right? Mom, Dad, and little Stephen, and we're out having an adventure in the world. And so therefore, and obviously this being 2021, we're in the wake of the big COVID pandemic. So for any number of reasons, a quick evolution for me is I've been sort of out of traditional work since just before the pandemic. And then, of course, the pandemic and my wife landing this job and being placed into a limbo as to when the hell we may eventually be able to move. You know, things got shut down, as we all know, and that was part of life. You know, it continues to be a part of life. Here, we're living in Guam, where tourism is sort of the primary industry, so you can imagine that it's been pretty hard hit. We really haven't seen Guam in its full bloom. When we arrived here back in basically early September, we arrived like actually October the 28th, so it was really, August the 28th. August the 28th, and so which is essentially the beginning of September. And really we landed, and immediately they, scurry you from the gate to a quarantine facility. At least they did at the time. There are no longer a 2-week mandatory quarantine. At that time there was. So we didn't really get to see Guam for the first like half a month, and then we were sort of floating for a little bit, and now we're in housing here on a military base. I've always been a writer at heart, but not really one. I couldn't really lay claim to saying that I am a writer and that I'm making my bones as a writer, and I haven't done the things necessary to make it as a writer, and that's something that I've sort of always had a deep desire to do. It's the sort of thing that I was always told by my teachers and professors as I grew up and then matured and went through college, that it's something that I should be doing. And I found ways to sort of avoid my calling for far too long. And, I'm now engaged in what I consider to be a second half of life reclamation project, if you can say, well, second half of life actually would project at age 50, soon to be age 51, that I'm going to live to be a centenarian, right, 100 years old. All right, maybe more of like a third and fourth quarter, late third, early fourth quarter, reclamation project. And you're saying 51 years old with a 3-year-old, that's what it is to be Russ, your guy in Guam. Yeah, man, and that's why that's part of what my outreach effort is, to put myself out there as authentically as I possibly can, and to talk to people who are, interested in finding inspiration in people who are working on mindset, and to speak to those people and to do it in real time while I am engaged currently in reshaping my life. So if you're curious about, there are a lot of people that have a lot to say about self-improvement and about mindset and health. These are things that I like to talk about. It's obviously things that are very central to my life and instrumental in me being able to enact these sorts of changes, big sweeping changes in my life, right? Really, I can say with confidence, look myself in the mirror and say, you are a writer, and this is what it is that I'm doing right now. But primarily a creative writer. So while I started, again, weeks ago, in support of an idea that I wanted to try to move into copywriting, I've taken some coaching, and again, I'm involved in courses, and I reached a level of clarity where I realized that even the pursuit of copywriting was still me in a certain way kind of avoiding what it is that I really am and what I'm really about, and that is being a creative writer. Yeah, and so while I feel like I'm going to be able to make good use of a lot of these principles, and I'm will be writing in my article work alternately about lots of different things. I think sort of. I mean, in some ways it may be end up being a lot of general observations, personal philosophies, because that's a lot of what really speaks to me. Health and wellness to a degree, but truly at its core, when I say it's all comical, why it's all comical? Well, I've done a lot of stand-up comedy in my career, and in my life, I should say, and I write comedy, but I also write horror. And I write sort of, like I see those, if you think about the dramatic masks, right? You've got the smiley mask and then that frowny mask, right? If you know what I'm talking about, those two theatrical masks that sort of are emblematic, symbolic of theater, of drama. We have comedy, we have tragedy. I write primarily in comedy and horror. I believe very strongly that the two are very closely aligned. We have a cliche that says, and I think it's a piece of wisdom that holds water, that says, that comedy is tragedy plus time. And so essentially, you've got these two ends of the spectrum that are actually really kind of, I think they come back around to being almost the same thing at a level. Both, if you're doing comedy correctly and if you're doing horror correctly, they're both intended, right, to really elicit a strong visceral reaction. On one hand, you've got, laughter, right? Things have to be funny, and then things have to be scary. So you want to give people a strong reaction to the material, and I those are the sorts of things that really kind of excite me a lot about storytelling. And then I write anything in between. Actually, the script that I've got that's out there that's sort of doing, well, it's in the hands of an independent producer, and they've been trying to package it for a period of time. We've had different, this is sort of the business of independent film, not a major studio, but still, legitimate professional film at the independent level. We've had a number of different directors sort of come and go, scheduling sorts of situations, and and that is a drama. That's actually sort of a thriller drama, kind of based on a story that takes place in my hometown of, really the suburbs of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and has to do with things that were going on in the suburb of Plano, Texas, back in the 1990s. It kind of still reverberates to this day. I'll probably have more chance to talk about that if that project continues to progress. But I am taking the reins on my life and on my career, and dedicating myself fully to being a communicator. This vlog being part of that effort, the articles, again, that I intend to publish on Medium or elsewhere, to my personal site. I mean, I have no idea if you're watching this video and when you're watching it, how it is that you came to find me. But I've accepted that part of being a communicator in the modern world is establishing an online presence with sort of a lot of tendrils out there, right? Lots of different irons in the fire, all roads leading to the same things. And in developing a project that I'm very passionate about, that I may also get to talk about some as things progress, one thing, and I don't primarily like to indulge in fan fiction, but I have one fan fiction project that's very, very close to my heart. And if you follow me on Facebook, you can find links to the pages that I'm on. I'm not going to get into what that's about currently, but it's a project that I wrote a script for, submitted to a festival. It did very well, won a prize in the festival, and I will soon be able to I've got a video that's being produced right now as promotional for it, and in the process of developing that project, I have been contacting visual artists and working with a few in order to create the storyboarding. It's going to be an animated video. And in the course of sort of, meeting the, virtually meeting people to do that kind of work for me, I've formed a relationship with a guy named Bill Morrison, who lives in the United Kingdom. Obviously, I don't have to explain to people. I feel, this is me being kind of an old guy explaining that, I've only met this person virtually. But we have a good working partnership going, and it may be someday that we end up moving to the UK. That's one of the possibilities with my wife's job, and she certainly has targeted some opportunities that might bring us to England. Of course, we may end up in Japan, we may end up in Germany, we might end up in Italy. A number of different places throughout the world where we could potentially end up. But my friend Bill in the UK is a very gifted visual artist, and through some ideas and various things that we've been talking about and discussing, again, we're developing a good close partnership. My last name is Phillips, his last name Morrison, PM. We've decided that we are going to market ourselves as PM Collaborative. So that we have that established June the 18th, 2021. If you see anything after that that's not Bill Morrison and Russ Phillips and purporting to be PM Collaborative, you got a lawsuit coming. But PM Collaborative is going to be involved. So something I'm passionate about screenwriting and movies. I have good familiarity with the world of comics and comic books, but it's not been a first love, and it wasn't something that I was primarily considering. But in my partnership with Bill, I realized how very closely aligned screenwriting and comic book scripting, truly are. I mean, they're very much. And comics have evolved since when I was younger to be even a bit more cinematic than they were, in that there's not as much, thought balloons. And so, with regard to, there's a larger style or a developed style in comic books these days that is primarily conveying a story through the visual and through dialogue, which is the only two avenues that you have. You don't have the access to inner thoughts in screenplays, and therefore not movies. And when you think about it, unless they deliberately, do like narration, but your majority of movies, you just see what people do and you simply hear what it is that they say. And comic books are a lot of them, comic work, graphic novels. Is developing along those lines, or again, it's become a little bit more cinematic, and so it lends itself to sort of a good crossover. Now, I'm not. I can draw a bit. I used to draw a lot when I was much younger. It's not a skill that I've developed to a level where I can really be a professional with it, or at least not. Not doing like detailed and somewhat realistic kinds of work with it. So that's why it's good for me to have I really couldn't consider it as in a professional sense without being able to work with somebody who's developed their skills as a visual artist. And Bill and I we're very closely aligned. We work well together, and I feel like it's going to be a good, fruitful partnership. So, this is a good early way for me to kind of announce a few things about what so what is it that I'm working on, and what is PM Collaborative going to be about. We began work on a graphic novel that we're I can tell you the name of it is Windy City, and it is going to be something that's a bit noir, a bit science fiction, a bit horror. While we're going, that's going to be a long-term project for us to develop and release. I invite you to come check out the PM Collaborative page on Facebook and find us where we are. We're sort of just getting things up and going. We're ramping up. I'm sure we will continue to expand our social media presence with it. So it may well be that you've found this video or found PM Collaborative, through any one of numerous social media platforms, or perhaps our own website, which we're getting together. But again, at this point, look, you got to dip your toe in somewhere, and I'm building it, and it's going to grow. Prior to Windy City, though, we're going to start introducing a bunch of one-off, sort of in an anthology format, individual stories, a lot of things that have written in prior years, things that we will continue to develop together. Bill does amazing work, and I'm excited that we will, at some point here in the very near future, begin having a webcomic that we'll be offering those sorts of stories as a way to introduce ourselves and to hopefully gain a following. So please keep an eye out. Under our anthology series is under the title of NOCTURNITY BLUE. So keep an eye out for that. Again, they're going to be, sort of stories within a gamut. They won't necessarily, some very, very straight horror, others that are sort of more leaning, to a reality bending or science fiction, perhaps crime, sort of playing in a similar arena with kind of ill-defined walls, but with it, similar, I would say, similar to what, to the Twilight Zone, maybe, right? That's kind of a loose idea for what it is that we're looking to do with Nocturnity Blue. Again, it'll be a series of unrelated one-off stories, small things. Maybe some of those will develop into series. We have other series ideas, things that are Bill's, that I will help him write and develop. So I thank you very much. If you do give us a look and find out what it is that we're doing, I'll be talking in this vlog about that. And then in covering many, many different topics and telling personal stories in the articles that I'm writing. Again, It's All Comical, I think, is a great way for me to sort of encapsulate, put under an umbrella what it is that I'm really doing. So I'm getting into work in comics, but also in comedy, as a comedian, as a comics writer, and also as sort of a philosophy of not taking life itself too horribly serious. I think it's a good title for me, and for, as part of what it is that I'm doing and what it is that I'm offering, and I hope that you will join me in all of these various sort of ventures. And again, they're connected, they're interwoven, but they're separate in some ways. I'm going to wrap things up then with sort of what the ongoing purpose of this vlog has been since its outset. It began life under the title A New Man. I talked about that A New Man was a little bit of a play on words, because I'm using, my wife and I are sort of, again, we're doing, this is a in real time, I suppose you'd say, test of, or living testimonial, or potentially a critique, but it's our weight loss effort while using the app Noom, N-O-O-M, which at this point, as I say, this is 8 weeks into my video documentation of the weight loss effort. It was a pretty decent week as far as, I don't have a lot to say about the weight loss effort this week as far as any challenges. Again, we make use of it. It's a psychologically driven with a lot of resources as far as recipes and the ability to track your weight on a daily basis and track your calories on a meal-by-meal basis. And I think that all of those tools together have been helpful through more than 8 weeks, 8 weeks of video blogging about it, but also then, as I said, it was about a 10-day gap between when I started and when I made my first video. So, 9 going on 10 weeks of actually trying to lose weight. Again, I started at the 265.2. I had some issues several weeks back with not being very confident in the second scale that we had. We had a glass top scale that unfortunately got broken that I really thought was great. And then when we went back to the same store, all they had was their cheapest scale. And so for that next week, I wasn't very confident in the readings of that scale. It seemed that the weight would bounce all over the place before it sort of settled in on a number, and it didn't give me great confidence. And it feels like, although we bought that same model scale that we had originally, the one that got broke, I don't know. The other day I had some real issues with it. Like I would, because I always, it's just, if I may have some minor OCD, and my minor OCD had me get back on the scale a couple of times. I always weigh it twice just to make sure it's a consistent reading. And when I get the same reading 2 in a row, boom, I love it. Great. It's consistent with itself, and I can rely on that. But the other day I got on it, and it was just giving me wild, wacky. So I got on, I tried both of our scales, and sort of finally decided, all right, I think it's about here. Last week, I believe I weighed in at 238. I'll check that out real quick, because it's easy enough to do. The weigh-in from last week was where? Like 238.5. 238.5, yeah. So last week, last Friday, exactly a week ago, was 238.5, and this morning I weighed in at 236.0. So down 2.5 pounds, which is a good week of weight loss. Then, I double weighed myself this morning. Like I did my regular weigh-in. I took my son to daycare, and came back, and I had used the restroom, and at that point it said I was 235.0. So, hey, look, so the bottom line is we're in the 236, 235 area, down from 265, and still a good long way to go. I invite you to continue to check in with me to see how my actual weight loss is going, and check in for the development, because I realize this one here is a bit all over the place. I'm trying to sort of, this is about setting the stage a bit and describing a bit about the evolution of the vlog. I don't intend for these things to always go half an hour. If you hang for me for the whole half hour, I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate you keeping up with me. And we will talk to you next week again. Tune in next week for the It's All Comical vlog. I will be talking about, again, all things comics, all things writing, all things related to comedy and horror. And then, of course, personal development, growth, and health with, that I'm doing in support of all of that stuff, right? I mean, again, it's interconnected, but differentiated in many ways. Hopefully that's an entertaining enough reason to continue to check in with me. And I thank you very much for watching. And until next week, you have a great week.